welcome to our second video on equations for this section, which basically this is only going to have one extra step from the first section. And the question that I want you to be asking yourself as you watch this video is, what happens if there are variables on both sides of the equation? Because up till now, we've only had x's or y's on the left side or the right side, but not both. So what section 2 will cover is what happens if there are variables on both sides of the equation. And the short answer is you have one extra step in the problem. So let's review what section 1 looked like. Since we only have one x in our problem, we can simply draw our line down the equal sign, and we can solve it just like we did last section. We're going to subtract 8 from both sides. This becomes 0. So I get 4x equals negative 20. And from here, I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And so I get x, or 1x, is equal to negative 5. And once again, because your teacher is a jerk, you have to check all of your answers for all of these problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do negative 4 times negative 5, because that was where our x was, plus 8. And we want that to be equal to negative 12. This is negative 20 plus 8. That is equal to negative 12. Therefore, we have the right answer. And what I did for the problem on the right is the question I asked at the beginning is, what happens if there are variables on both sides of the equation? So that's what I did. I added in a 2x to the right side of the equation. So what I'm going to do from here is I am going to solve this problem, the first step, exactly like the first step of the last problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And from here, what I get is I get 4x is equal to negative 20 plus 2x. And these cannot be combined together because these are regular numbers, and this is a number times a variable. So these cannot be touching each other. Therefore, what we have is a new type of equation where we can move the x's to the right, or we can move the x's to the left. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on this slide both directions that we can move this problem. So on the left side, I'm going to do it exactly like we were before, and then we're going to finish that problem that way. So over here, I'm going to, let's do that again. That's what happens when I try to freehand. All right, so on the last one, I moved my 8 to the right, and I got 4x minus 20 plus 2x. From this point, I'm going to move my x's left to start with. So I'm going to do the opposite of positive 2x. I want to make this 0. The opposite of positive 2x is negative 2x. And that right there is the only new step to our setup. We subtract 2x from both sides. You only want to multiply or divide on the very, very last step. So I get 2x is equal to negative 20. And now we're back to exactly what we had before. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I get 1x is equal to negative 10. And then once again, I can check my answer to make sure it worked. So I'm going to do 4 times negative 10 plus 8 on the left side. And I'm going to do negative 12 plus 2 times negative 10 on the right side. This is negative 40 plus 8, which is negative 32. This is negative 12. Sorry, my brain shut off there for a second. This is a true statement. Therefore, our answer is correct. Now, in this one, we moved the x's to the left. Let's go back to that step we had before, exactly like what we had it. And let's see what happens if we move the x's to the right. So from here, if I want to move this x to the right, I would subtract 4 x's from each side. And now here's the reason why a lot of people don't do it this way. This is equal to 0. And on the right side, I have negative 20 minus 2x. Now, I have everything on one side of the equal sign, so I have to move the 20s back over. And so I get 20 is equal to negative 2x. I divide by negative 2. And I get negative 10 is equal to x. So because I moved the x's to the right and I moved the numbers to the right, I ended up having this extra kind of weird step in the middle. So here's how you get candy from this video. If you come up to me and say that you need to move your x's one direction and you move the numbers to the opposite direction, I will give you one piece of candy. And for the next couple of problems, I will make sure that I do that. So for the problem on the left, here, I'm going to block this one out so we don't get distracted by it. For the problem on the left, I am going to draw my line down my equal sign, and I'm going to make sure that I move my x's one direction and all of my regular numbers to the opposite direction. Now I notice right away that I have a parenthesis here, so I have to do the distributive property. So I get negative 6x plus 27. And on the right side, I get 18 plus 3x. Now, from before, we can move the x's to either direction. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to move my x's to the left and my numbers to the right. Doesn't matter which direction you go, but that's the one I'm going to stick with. So I'm going to subtract 18 from both sides, making sure that I match my numbers up with my numbers. So I get 3x equals negative 6x plus 9. From here, because I moved my numbers left, I move my x's right. And I get 9x equals 9. I divide both sides by 9, and I get 1x equals 1. So to check my answer, to give myself room, I'm going to do it over here. I get 18 plus 3 times 1. And on the right side, I'm doing 3 parentheses, negative 2 times 1 plus 9. 18 plus 3 times 1, well, that's 21. And over here, this is equal to negative 2 plus 9, which is 3 times 7. That's a true statement. Therefore, I am correct. Now, if I moved my x's to the... So I moved my x's left. If I moved my x's right and my numbers left, I still would have gotten the same answer. But you get to pick which direction they go. So now this one on the right is about as hard as this section can be. So let's work through this one nice and slow together. First step is double distributive property. So I'm going to get 12y minus 24 is equal to negative negative makes 2y. Negative, negative makes positive 6. From here, I draw my line down the equal sign, and I just solve like I've been solving. Now this time, I'm going to move my x's to the right, and I'm going to move my numbers to the left. Just to do it a little bit differently, I am going to stop doing that eventually. So I get 12y minus 30 is equal to 2y. I moved my numbers left, so I'm going to move my x's to the right by subtracting 12y from both sides. So I get negative 30 is equal to negative 10y. From here, I can divide both sides by negative 10, and I get 3 equals y. And to keep the video short, I'm going to have you check this problem on your own. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know.